I was at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, and this was in the mid-'90s. I was walking around, and it suddenly hit me, and I thought, wow, there's such a cultural influence in basketball. And I kept thinking, there's Kareem, there's Elgin Baylor, there's Connie Hawkins, Julius Erving, etc. And I thought, I wonder who was the Jackie Robinson of basketball? Because that's the game that I grew up playing in the streets of New York. And I was like, well, there must have been that first player. And I asked at the Basketball Hall of Fame, I asked that question. And at the time, no one there knew. There was no information about the first black basketball player in the NBA. And what they did is they said, well, there might be some information up in the research department. So I went up to the research department, and there was a gentleman there who said, well, it's a sketchy story. There were 3 players, Earl Lloyd, Chuck Cooper, and Nat Sweetwater Clifton. And I said, okay. And he said, well, it's a sketchy story. And he said, we have a little bit of information here, but nobody's really ever written a book about it. So I started I just thought, wow, well, there's a story here. I thought maybe I was either going to write a book or perhaps make a documentary. I was making documentary films at the time. There was none of this back then. So I went to the Columbia University. I was told that there was a plethora of historical information about sports history, American sports history at the Columbia University. And I went to the library, and there was I think it was called microfiche at the time. And I found some interesting information. And I thought, well, where's the story? How did this all come together? And I started doing the research. Little by little, started putting together the story. And little did I know that I would eventually direct a feature film in the late 90s, and that I would move to California, and that this was indeed eventually going to become a movie. That all happened very organically, but there was a lot of nurturing along the way, and there were a lot of wonderful people along the way who contributed to the story.
I think the purpose of that is that it starts with an idea, and then it starts with the script. So, when you put together enough of the information to know that you were creating a screenplay, that went through many incarnations and revisions. I mean, how many drafts of the screenplay did you do before we ended up shooting?
60-something drafts of the screenplay, and it was because I kept on uncovering information that I couldn't find, and then I would change something, because at one point or another you want to create, you have to take a little bit of creative license. But because this was a part of American history and such an impactful and relevant moment that took place in 1950, I felt that it was important to get it right so that there would never be any question ever again about what happened. And even like I said, a week before we started filming, the NBA said, wait a minute. We just found out this stuff. You need to put this in there. And I was like, oh, perfect. Ultimately, the story is about Nat Sweetwater Clifton. We were 3 weeks away from filming, and we still didn't have a Sweetwater Clifton cast. We had everybody else, but we didn't have Sweetwater Clifton.
And it's a challenging role, because Martin was very adamant about the fact that he did not want to cheat the basketball. He did not want to lower the hoop. He wanted to get an actor who could play ball, or a ball player who can act.
Because the lens lives for emotion, and emotion comes from truth. And that's what a great performance will always be, is you'll feel truth in a great performance. We got 1,000 submissions, potentially. NBA players, retired NBA players, college players, as Dahlia had, and from all over the world, by the way, we received submissions to who was going to play Nat Sweetwater Clifton. And we had to go through all of it, watching all the videos, self-tapes, videos, resumes. And along the way, I saw this video of a guy who was wearing the exact look of a 1950 basketball player, which, by the way, I have to say is a very courageous thing to do. And the moves were incredibly, they reflected the style that was played in 1950. The person who took the time to make this video had done his homework.
All this kind of starts with a question and being curious. And he mentioned the artistic journey starting with a question, figuring out the story he wanted to tell, and digging deeper and researching and finding information. And then it all boils down to just a passion that keeps you hunting for that question and not being so focused on the surroundings or the generations or what's going on around you. Because when you can do that, you can almost forget your own personal purpose. So always hearing that voice of God is what I call it, that's digging inside of you, right? So I found myself always listening to that. And I played ball for my whole life, played basketball, boom, boom. There was a point in my life where I had to pivot and I leaned into acting. And I've always been passionate about human beings. So the fact that this opportunity came and it aligned is very interesting because these people were on the same journey of listening and being passionate and pursuing their goal and not even knowing where their lead role was. Like most people are like, oh, I don't know where my lead is at. I can't do the film or I can't do this. So many people feel like they need everything at their fingertips to take that first step forward. But my belief is when you take a step forward and you do all you can, God can do what you can't, right? And he will send the right people to you or the right productions or teams, whatever. So for me, answering your question, that first day on set, filming with people that's won Oscars and Emmys, and I've never been on a Warner Brothers set. I mean, the closest thing I've seen to Warner Brothers was in my grandmother's house in L.A., watching Space Jam and watching the What's Up, Doc, eating the carrot, the bunny with the WB. That's the closest thing I've seen to Warner Brothers in my life, right? So to be on that set in that time was surreal, but it was honest and it was pure, and I think just from an actor's perspective, just staying, or just a creator or artist, whatever it is, just staying true to whatever the story is that you're telling and not worrying so much on the outside. And the environment that you guys created was very peaceful. It was loving. It was true. It was supportive. And it was easy to step into. So from the acting standpoint, you get a self-tape audition sometimes if you don't just get called in for the role. Maybe it had like a 3-day turnaround to send back to these producers and send them a video. So during that time period, 3-4 days, kind of just shut out the world and did my research. And I mean, you'll be surprised what you can do when you really focus and you cut out the noise. And thankfully, I was able to find older videos of Sweetwater and just kind of connect with them and learn about them and just be curious about them. And once again, just starting with that question of curiosity and just being sensitive to how he talked, what he liked, and just absorbed as much information as I could in those 3 days. And like he said, just even how you walked, how you dressed, the clothes, just doing all I can. It's not just about the actor that makes the film. It's the below the line. It's the hair department, right? It's the wardrobe. I mean, it's the hair and makeup. I mean, when I put on the clothes, I felt different. When I would go in and Tiffany Hasborn, who did our wardrobe, when she would give me the suit, I felt different. When Jung Hwa, who would do my makeup, and Maisha would do my hair, I would feel different. I would look in the mirror, I would look at a picture of Sweetwater, and it'll help me get to my space. So I just did all that from my house that I could do. And then when we showed up on set, as we kept doing it, like he was saying, as he did more research about the character and the story, he learned more about it. So as we were filming it, I just got more in tune with what we were doing and kind of created it that way.
And you also got a chance once you were cast in the role to connect with Sweetwater's daughter and the family, and that was something too.
Yeah, being able to connect with his daughter and his family was very important. But it was interesting because I didn't really meet his daughter until we were already filmed scenes, right? So it was scary to kind of meet her. Hopefully I got it right because I'm playing a real guy. But for her to say, hey, you remind me of my dad, I see your dad in your eyes, it was just like, it was that extra confirmation and affirmation. But Martin did a great job of doing his 28 years of research. So when he called me, gave me the role, offered me the role, I mean, he was able to put me in a spiritual space. It's not about, because the camera, you don't have to say anything, it can feel you. So when you're connecting with the right people and teams, sometimes it's not what people are saying, it's how you feel. It's what's not being said. And he did a great job of stewarding that moment and connecting me to the tone of the whole world of the shoot that we were going to be in. That helped as well.
I want you on the set right now. No, I'm just kidding. My natural habitat is to make the movie before you make the movie, which means that during pre-production, you have a reading of the script, perhaps. I like what's called a staged reading, and I did that a couple of times with Sweetwater script, which means you get actors. It doesn't have to be the actors who are going to be in the film as you're writing your screenplay or as you are preparing the project. Get a group of actors together and have it put up on its feet, I call it. It's like a staged play. You actually see it, as opposed to sitting at a table and doing a table read. You actually see it up on its feet, and you get a sense of life. You get a sense of interaction between the characters, and you can adjust and prepare for the set that way. The more you prepare for it as a director and you listen to your team, whether it's the cinematographer, the production designer, even the casting director may have some ideas, or your actors may have ideas. Always being open to finding the truth in every character, because what's interesting is after the script is written and you make the movie, you're handing the script to the actors. They're going to bring their personal life story. Everett brought personal life pedigree DNA into the Sweetwater story that made it real. It just so happens that he also channeled the story. We were all channeling that story. The first take, I let everybody do whatever they're going to do. I want to see what it's like. It feels like a rehearsal. I prefer not to rehearse on set. If we're going to rehearse, I'd rather do it off the set. I like filming the rehearsal because sometimes you get a freshness and a realism that will never come again. And then all you have to do is make an adjustment maybe and do a take two, and you move on. You keep it fresh. In the event that that first take is off, and by the way, that first take I always do with two cameras. One is on a wide lens, and the other one is on a tighter lens, and I'm focusing on the lead, like the actor carrying the story in that particular scene. After that first scene, if it needs help, I break it down. We talk about it. I'm always opening to listening. I like staying out of the way, unless the actors are improvising and it's taking the story away from the continuity. Then I bring it back, right? Keeping the train on the tracks. But I love doing a third. Like once I know that I got the take that I needed, I always give everybody one more take, and I say, you know what? Open up here, improvise a little bit, because you're going to get some magic no matter what. So I go from being open, keeping it on the tracks, to all possibilities. That, you know, I'm a three-take guy in an ideal world. Sometimes, though, you get the magic and take one or two. There's no way around it. Your final rewrite is in the editing room. It's an organic bohemian process that at the end of the day, right, in the editing room, you got to be open to all possibilities. The job of a director, in my opinion, is to channel the story, to stay true to the story, but and to keep 120 people painting the same painting together.
We did shoot Warner Brothers. It was not a Warner Brothers film. We raised the money independently. Obviously, the Film Commission helped us tremendously to stay in California, and the reason that we were able to do so was because the film took place in 1950. So we knew that the movie mostly had interiors, and we actually built the interior of Madison Square Garden in combination with green screen psych, CGI, crowd replication to create the additional tiers. But we built the first level, the first row, into what Madison Square Garden looked like in 1950, which does not look like current Madison Square Garden today. So we couldn't even shoot in New York in the same location that we would normally. And New York City doesn't look like New York City in 1950. So the back lot at Warner gave us the perfect hybrid opportunity to shoot the interior scenes that we needed, and then also to shoot some of the exterior. And we did use also Disney Ranch, which gave us like some of the upstate New York and a couple locations exterior that we needed for a nightclub scene and otherwise. But it was a tremendous opportunity to shoot here. But you know, speaking to Everett's curiosity and passion, as Martine said, it takes a village. Every department is extremely integral to making a film, and especially on an independent film, you don't have a minute to waste. You're counting your dollars, you're counting your clock. You got to make sure that you finish, you wrap on time and on budget. And when you're shooting days are over. You don't have the luxury of shooting another day or 2 or 3 or a week, or, you know, going back and picking up reshoots or any of those things that sometimes they do have the luxury on studio pictures. So you want to get everything in the can, so to speak. And Everett was so inquisitive. He would go around to every department. He made sure that he had, you know, he was asking the questions. What does a DIT do? You know, what is the person in the props department? What's your responsibility? You know, how can I make sure that, you know, that the authenticity of this, that, and the other was there? He spoke to the craft service people. He was talking, the editor was on set, and he was interested in, like, what was going on in the editing room and how was the footage looking. The filmmaking world gives you an opportunity, whether you want to study accounting, you can be a production accountant. You want to be a lawyer, you can still be a lawyer for the entertainment world and for a film. So it's really amazing how every job and opportunity, a gaffer, a grip, a DP, you don't have to just be an on-camera talent or a director or a writer, and people think that that's the crux of movie making. It's really not. I mean, the below the line personnel are the ones that really make the movie. Everyone else gets the glory, but the actual work happens a lot behind the scene. The responsibility of a producer, I think, is always to keep the creative vision intact. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about quote unquote career producers, because there's a lot of people nowadays that get producer credits for all different reasons. But the ones that actually either spark the idea of the story and or champion and cherish that film all the way to distribution are the, considered quote unquote career producers, the ones that are, really like hands-on and physically making the movie. And I think once you hire a director and once you are giving them the creative sandbox to play in, you do have to still create parameters within that, right? Because you have a fiscal responsibility. You have to be aware of the bottom line, what every day is going to cost. You may be able to creatively shift money around in the budget to allow for that creativity to flourish. The director may say, this tent absolutely, at one point, it needs to open up because we need to see the sky. And they're right. But how are we going to pull it off? So we thought we were going to, have 20 people and now we're only going to have 10, but we're going to be able to pull off opening the tent because we were able to get that. It's a balance, exactly. So making the hard decisions when you need to about things that may be able to go by the wayside, but at the same time always looking for the creative, what's going to tell the best story at the end of the day. So, a producer's a problem solver and a puzzle solver. And the first response should be, yes. We'll figure it out. So as long as you're open to it, just like, open to the creative, open to let's make that work. And, and then you figure it out.
Be fearless, follow your vision, nurture it, be collaborative, and know that you can manifest any story that you want to tell and tell it truthfully. At the end of the day, if nobody believes in you and somebody's saying no and you're hearing no, that's normal. Know that you're not alone. Nowadays, you can just make your movie anyway. Make your movie. Tell your story.
I know filmmaking is a special thing, whatever aspect you're doing it. And to understand that what we create lasts forever, So create from that space. Build your team from that space. An artist isn't defined or confined to just their generation. So do the research, do the homework, and be driven by something beyond just the flashing lights and the likes of other people, because you will hear no, so you have to have something that grounds you deeper to keep you going, and to understand that, this is just a special time in history. Whatever spot we're living in right now, there's a special voice, a perspective that you have, and understand that. Take into consideration that as we create, what is going on in the world around me? What does humanity need right now? Really be sensitive to the times. of what's going on and dig in to understand the need, because there's so much power and responsibility in telling stories and showing images and imagery and informing people and creating and having fun. As I was walking here, I met a young guy outside, and I just told him that anything done out of love will bear fruit eventually. So even if you find your people, and they may not last the whole journey with you, if you connect with people in love, and some people fall off along the way, God will send the right people around you. So continue to understand, move with love, great intention in this business, and it will always work out for you, regardless.
The great thing is we live in the mecca of the entertainment industry. You know, we are here. People move here from all over the world in order to live their dream. So the fact that you are here in California, that you're here in Los Angeles, and that you know, have a community around you, resources, the Film Commission, us as a company, just the outreach and the outsource. As Martine said, you can film these days on your iPhone. The fact that there's so many distribution opportunities and outlets, streamers, content providers that, you know, are looking, they really need content. That's the end of the day. So whether it's, you know, a video that goes on TikTok and goes viral, or, you know, an idea and a pitch that, how did the Karate Kid reboot go from YouTube all the way to Netflix and become like one of the most watched series and continue on? Well, they knew they didn't want to give up. So it's about creating with community, with people that are like-minded, that just want to tell a story. And no matter what that content is, if you're telling it truthfully, as Martine said, eventually it'll find its home.